This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Freckles, your host, whether you like it or not. Thank you for being here, everybody. Thank you for all the rating and reviewing that's going on. I truly appreciate that. Thank you to all the new Patreon members. It's working, guys. It's really great. So with Patreon, there's 2 extra episodes a month, Cops of the News, where we kind of crack wise on more current events, and it's a lot looser. It's really fun. You guys can join live and chat and stuff. So those are only available to Patreon members. And, offering that extra content is working out, because I thought, why do I join people's Patreons? It's for more stuff. So if you join the Patreon, there's a bunch of different levels, patrolman, sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. And you also get a snazzy 3x3 vinyl podcast sticker. And what it does basically for me is it enables me to work less overtime or road work, so that I can spend the time on the podcast and, get some extra money, some extra shekels to pay the bills and bring you guys these amazing stories. So the whole point, if you're new here, the whole point of the podcast is for people to hear the men and women of law enforcement tell their stories totally uninhibited, unedited, how the job really is and what they actually have to deal with on a daily basis. So that's the whole deal. I love that you guys are here, and I love all the people that are ripping through the back catalog, because it is evergreen content. It's not, it's good for all times, everybody. You can just rip through and listen. And I get messages from people, like I've said before, that they're like, hey, I'm on episode number 79. I'm catching up. We're up to like over 200 now. So thank you for being here. I truly appreciate you. And today's episode is going to be no different. I have a fantastic guest in the green room right now. He works for Alpharetta, Georgia Police Department. He's a sergeant there. He's been on the job 18 years. He's on patrol, FTO, SWAT, and currently is in some kind of admin position he can tell us about. And he is the handler of the famous canine Mattis, which has 291,000 followers on Instagram and also 5.2 million on TikTok. But also, obviously, all that credit is to Mr. Mark Tappan, not the dog. So without further ado, Mark, welcome, brother.
Thank you so much. And I would actually give all the credit to the dog.
No, man, I read about you, brother. You come from a family of people that know how to master the beasts. Your dad was a big trainer. Like you have it in your blood, right? Yeah,
for sure. I just love the fact that you said I'm hiring like a admin guy. You had a murder detective on last, and now admin. How exciting.
Brother, as the words left my mouth, I was like, this is dumb. You should have said that. But hey, you know what? Dude, you've been on the job 18 years. You got like a world famous canine. Admin works. It's okay. We need some good eyes up there. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know about that, but I'll take it.
Dude, so were you get this, I mean, obviously you have this huge following and you have this like hugely successful partnership with Mattis. Were you involved with picking this dog, or was this just kind of like a roll of the dice?
Oh, no. So he's my second dog. And I had gone through a trainer school, and so I learned in the trainer school how to select dogs. And so I had a very specific dog in mind that I wanted, just like the instructor that I went to. He trained dogs for the Navy SEALs, like the Dev Group, SEAL Team 6.
Yeah.
So that's the dog. I wanted a Belgian Malinois that weighed 65 pounds, that was super fast and agile.
Could throw through a window.
Yeah, you could just throw him anywhere, like a crazy cat. Go nuts on someone. And I ended up instead with a 100-pound German Shepherd because no other dog could compete with this dog. He was so amazing.
Yeah, dude, I am a big German Shepherd fan. I grew up, my uncle always had German Shepherds. I always nothing to do with the working aspect of them, but I always loved, my uncle was always kind of a loner. He was single a lot, but he always had this big German Shepherd with him. And the dog was like, it was like the dog could read his mind. So unbelievably loyal to my uncle. Like, so he trusts this dog. So he took it. He was a truck driver. So he would take it for deliveries in a 16-wheeler and the dog just hung with him. It just knew when to be nice, knew when not to be nice. And it was just so cool to see that relationship. And that's what impressed on me was the German Shepherd. I'm like, this dog is just badass. I just love these dogs.
Best job in the world. I'm sure your uncle would say, just having that relationship. It's one of the most amazing things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So when you have a puppy, like when I went to, when you go to pick out a puppy, people give you all kinds of unsolicited advice about like, well, if it comes to you and you clap your hands, or if it's the one that everybody's crawling over, he'll be mellow. But I don't know how much of that is true. But when you're a canine handler looking for a specific kind of dog, and you're looking at a litter of prospects, like an 8-week-old puppy, what can you tell from it? What can give you a hint?
So you test these dogs when they're a little bit older because it's a dual purpose canine. So one of the things it has to be able to do is the bite work, which is fighting for the dog. And not only fighting, but fighting something that's 3 times its size. And so you start at about 2 years old. Sometimes they'll be 18 months, but I like to lean towards the 24 months to get the dogs. But what you're looking for, it's, you want a high prey drive. So you want kind of that intensity about the dog where you throw a ball and all they care about in life is getting that ball, right? So that's one of the tests that we do. Then you take them and you throw the ball, but you hold them back and spin them around so they can't see it, and then you let them hunt for it. So that shows like how long are they going to stay on the hunt. So that's another thing you look for.
Okay.
There's a perseverance test where you take the ball and you hide it under something that they can see it, they can smell it, but they can't get to it, and how hard are they going to try to get to it. So you want high perseverance. And there's some other things that you're looking for, confidence, and there's some intangibles as well. And then the last thing you do is throw in that bite suit and see how hard they bite.
Damn, man. So you're 18 months. That's an old dog to me. I mean, that's no puppy.
Yeah. Well, you want to get them out of that puppy phase because you can with the bite work especially, you can do some damage to their psyche if you start them too much earlier.
Okay. So, yeah, I remember one of my German Shepherds I had, his name was Kaiser, and he was kind of like the last one in the litter, and she had never used this stud before. It was an East German Shepherd line, and he was like the meanest dog. Like he ended up being leveling out, but I'm talking like 12 weeks old at the beach. There was a Mastiff puppy on the beach. And the Mastiff puppy was a little older. And this 12-week-old puppy literally backed up to me, showed his teeth, like, and latched on to the Mastiff's face. And I was like, everybody there was like, we've never seen a puppy act. The puppy's acting like from the Never-Ending Story. Like, you know what I mean? The thing that helped the nothing.
Was that it? The morgue?
Yeah, the morgue or Gabor, yeah. Same thing happened. I brought him to the vet. He started going after other dogs in the vet with his teeth out, but the little puppy teeth. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, dude, I made a mistake. Come to find out, his dad was a German Dachshund bite. Is that a thing? Schutzhund. Yep. His dad was a German Schutzhund champ, and the mom was just some flat-backed bitch from the United States. That's a proper term. I'm not.
It's a technical term.
Technical term. So she kind of put them together, but the one we got and he was all dark. He looked Eastern European, like dark, and nice. But it was such a sad, like it was. I got him because we were on midnights. I always had female shepherds. I got a male in this case. I was on overnights for 5 years. I wanted a dog home with my family. And he was psycho. Like he would come home and he would see me and be so excited that he would like flip around and knock furniture over.
Oh yeah.
And then he wanted like a job. He was like, what are we doing? I'm like, I'm tired. I would just work a double. I need you to shut up. And it was just not. We look back on it. It's our fault. It's not the dog.
Yes.
He had a different mission. You know what I mean? But yeah, I thought about him. I think about Kaiser all the time when I'm like scrolling through your Instagram and I see this dog and I'm like, oh, Kaiser, you should have been somewhere else,
Some work.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, dude, that's crazy. So I'm so unaware of the canine world. I have friends that are canine officers, but I really don't ask them a lot of questions. Where is this dog until it's 18 months?
So his track, he was Czechoslovakian, and then he was sold to a kennel in Holland, and they started doing some training. The bite work, you wait till they're a little bit older, but there's some things that you can develop in the dog. Um, some obedience to an extent, but you don't want to be too hard on the dog because you want to keep his drives pretty high. But you can kind of build the bite, but you can't necessarily get the fight aspect of what they need to get into. So I chose him from a kennel that was in Alabama that had selected him from Holland to get to the United States.
Wow. So you're going through a couple middlemen so you actually get to get eyes on these dogs.
Right. Yeah, and it's hard too because like speaking to some Europeans and some of the larger vendors, Europeans don't like to let really good dogs get out, and sometimes in the United States we have different priorities in a dog that they do in Europe. And so anyway, I had a guy from Holland say that dog should have never gotten out of Holland.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great, man. That's funny because my wife's a big in the horse world. She competed at UMass for dressage and against all kinds of different competitors, and she knows a lot about the Germans when it comes to breeding horses and how strict they are. Like there's no nonsense, and they're the same way with dogs. They're very strict on the quality and the quality of the animal that they want in country, and it's way different than the United States. Like these horses
Yep.
and go ahead.
They breed for work.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so she said she won, I think Mount Holyoke was one college she went against, which is a very highbrow college, and their captain was like a German woman, and had that whole air about her, But it is fascinating because when in the United States when you buy a German Shepherd, like our dog Cash, he's 125 pounds, but he was certified for his elbows and his hips, and we got him off a breeder in Campo, California, which is the Mexican border, and she breeds for jumbo size, health, temperament, and intelligence.
Nice.
And then she would further do the temperament test, which I never even knew was like, I was like, this can't be accurate, but it was totally accurate because she temperament tested all the puppies, and then she laid out their personalities, what they would be like, and we picked Cash, and he is exactly how she described.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's like
doing it right. I like it.
Yeah, he's great. She's very strict, and he's a moose. Like when he barks, you can feel it in your chest. It's like the mailman. Like the first time we moved in this house, the lawn's kind of a sloping hill, and the mailbox is down here. So Cash is very much at level with him when he's in his little truck.
Yeah.
And he pulled up, and my wife had not even told me about it, but he pulled up one Saturday, and he's like, I just want to apologize. I really swore way too much in front of your wife. I really thought your dog was going to kill me. And I'm like, what? So my wife was out back we have animals like Nigerian dwarf goats and chickens and stuff. And
Nice.
Cash sniffed that he was here, and he's very much a shepherd. Like he's very much a male shepherd, like all about boundaries. Yeah. So he didn't go after the guy, but the guy got too close to our property line. And he went out, and he's 125 pounds, but then he puts his fur up, and it's like, it's like a werewolf.
That's huge.
Yeah, and the guy said I was absolutely crapping my pants. And the male people, believe it or not, he'd been doing it for years. He goes, I've had dogs jump in this window.
Wow.
And he goes, so I was imagining your dog jumping in the window and just decapitating me.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I'm like, brother, I'm so sorry. He will never do that. He's never been a human. He's just very much a protector, and he's like, I totally get it. But yeah, they are. I mean, I'm big into German Shepherds, but like that's one breed if I see in a car, I'm not going to reach in the window and pat it.
Yeah, that's a good practice on your part.
Yeah, thank you. Mark, can you take us back to when you were a young officer, the first hot call you went on, the first call you went on where you were like, damn, this is for real. You had like a little adrenaline drop.
Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Wow. That's 18 years. I'm old, right? That's a lot to remember.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to be honest with you. The very first one where I felt the adrenaline drop was a DUI. And what happened was I was in FTO, and my FTO was teaching me, and he showed me this video of a DUI he had done a month prior. So he took the VHS tape and he put it in the player, and he fast forwarded to the part where all these terms probably mean nothing to the younger audience, but you
Right.
know what I'm talking. He fast forwarded to the DUI, and he showed this female doing fields. This is all pertinent, I promise. And the female, as he's doing fields, he's doing HGN, horizontal gaze and nystagmus on her, and he notices something out of the corner of her eye. He goes, "Is that feces? Is that feces?" She pooped herself right
Oh.
there doing fields, and he's like, "Just so you know, anything can happen." And so we're on this DUI. A person passed out at the wheel on an exit ramp off the freeway. And I walk up to the car. I'm doing the first approach. So already my nerves. This is my first time on a D. Like I know that she's probably intoxicated.
Oh
The
yeah.
driver's fine. And it's like 2 a.m. in the morning. And I go up and I make contact with the driver. And then he starts snickering. I'm like, why is he laughing? Am I like screwing this up? Smell alcohol. I'm trying to wake her up because she's just out on the wheel. And but her head was turned towards the other side, so he could see her and I couldn't. It was the same girl. It was the same girl from his tape. And we start. So I'm like all these things. I've just gotten out of the academy. I'm trying to remember what to do, and I get her out of the car. And guess what she does? Right in the middle of the exit ramp from the freeway, she drops trowel. So I gotta say, if I go back and really think about the first adrenaline, that was it. Because I was like, what do I do right now? She's in the middle of the exit ramp doing this in front of me. And it's the same person that we just saw. Fast forward another week, guess who we saw at a stoplight passed out at the light?
Damn.
Yeah. So kind of sad, but yeah, I would say that's the first impactful call.
Dude, that's
That's
so fun. That's your FTO is great. He's like, not only is this an OUI example, this will be your first OUI.
this is the one.
Dude, that's so funny because I know when you're first doing the standard field sobriety test and you're like, oh, what is the order? Let
Yeah.
me pick up the clues on HGN. And you're like, do I write them down? Because that feels weird because I'm taking my eye off. You know what I mean? There's so many things in your head going on. And this girl's like, let me just take a dump.
Right there. Freeway.
Dude, you can't write this stuff. It's so
If you want to,
great.
I got one, but that's probably the first.
Yeah, dude, that's great. I mean, and everything really when you're, I love first stories like that because, some guys legitimately go to like, LAPD or like a Miami-Dade and they're like, oh, my first call was like a triple homicide. And you're like,
Sure.
what? That would have blown my brains out. But I love the real, the more typical first call that gets your adrenaline going when you're new is something like that when you're just stressed out of your mind because you have someone over your shoulder and it is stressful. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah, not only him, but the sergeant was there too, and they're both just like cutting up the entire time, and they think it's so entertaining as I'm trying to, sort through all of this because they don't. That's actually not a chapter in the academy of how to handle when someone you're doing fields and they drop trout. They don't. That's not a chapter.
Right. Yeah, they don't,
You're
they
on
don't,
your own
there's no bullet points for that. They don't go over the
no,
elements of the crime.
at all.
Oh, brother, that is freaking fantastic. Mark, thinking back in your career, can you think of like the most strange or most bizarre thing you dealt with?
Mm. Well, I mean that's pretty bizarre,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
The most bizarre. Um,
Okay, did your publicist not give you these questions?
no. Well, let me defend her. She might have. Like I, I have a full time job, and I'm doing this with everything else. So
Understood.
I might not have seen a most bizarre. Um, I mean, I would categorize most difficult as well. Um, and that would be like, if this is another impactful one. And I was a young officer. I came from a background that really helped me out. Um, I was a youth pastor before I was a cop, and so early on, I went to a call, and it was a death call, and it was a 12-year-old, and he had passed from either suicide or audio audio asphyxia. And so that situation, I remember being incredibly difficult. Like, it was one of those that I'm dealing with the parents.
Mm.
There's a 12-year-old, and it's one of those things that never leaves you. And it was one of those, I had another senior officer that was with me, and he kind of took over the details of getting things down, where it was important that the family had someone, and it happened to be me in that case. And so it was the case, like, we're so much more than just police officers. In that case, I had to be a counselor, and it was hard. Like, that was one of the hardest call that I've been on to in my entire career, and I was a brand new officer, um, just because I had to navigate something so difficult that you would want no one to have to ever go through.
Yeah, it's an impossible situation. Like, how do you, especially being so new, how do you figure out the right thing to say to these people? Because there's no comforting them, right?
Right. Yeah, and you try your best. And I saw, they seemed like a religious family, just looking about the house. And so that's kind of where my wheelhouse is, coming to being a youth pastor before. And so tried to lean on that to be able to give some sort of comfort. But that was, yeah, I'd say bizarre, difficult. That was incredibly hard to navigate.
Yeah, it is brutal, man. I've been to a few deaths like that were like related to that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's not only is there the incredible sadness of like the person or the child is dead, but there's that perverseness to it where it's like the people have to think somehow that like something about them has been exposed, where like they would have a child or a brother or dad of the family that was doing this stuff, or possibly, you know what I mean? So that's like really that it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard. When I was in police academy, we had a trooper came in from the homicide squad and taught talking about difficult situations, trying to prepare us. And she said she did one in Boston that was, or outside Boston, that was like a Catholic family, and grandpa was found with a noose around his neck, and they thought, oh, he or like, not like a proper 13 rung noose, but hung himself. And to them, this was devastating because they were Catholic, and the Catholics believe if you kill yourself, game over. You're, no, not even purgatory for them. It's like, it's hell. So through the investigation, they figured out that she got a little ladder and looked at the top of the door. Grandpa lived in this house for 50 years, and there was grooves in the top of the door from the rope where he would gratify himself like this. So she said she was posed with the predicament of alleviating some of their Catholic guilt, but replacing it with grandpa used to choke himself and masturbate. So she told us this, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is I hope I never ever come across a case like this.
Yeah, and that's, and why I'm so grateful that I always had this guy over my shoulder, is you deal with darkness and some things that you never would sign up to say, hey, I want to do this. But if you can stand in that gap and be some sort of comfort in those occasions, that's the heart behind what we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And is Mattis, is he the kind of dog where you could let people touch him?
Yeah, actually, I worked hard. He's a super social dog. He's super stable. He's driven, excellent at his job, but at the same time, he very much can interact with anyone.
That's a blessing, brother, because I've worked with some canines before that are like, they're like a loaded gun. And
Yep.
mostly, like we were saying before the show, the Malinois, like they're such hard workers and they produce, but working with them in the past and where it's like the handler will be like, you'll be on a track for a felon and they'll be like, don't touch him. If we swing around, get away from us. He bit a cop last week, and you're like, this sucks.
Yeah. Well, it was so, and that was the trainer school that I went to. He had a Mal, and this is what I saw was in the civilian world, and a lot of the trainers that host these schools, they have demo dogs. But these demo dogs, they're excellent at the police type work, but they're also excellent at interaction because they're trying to get clients. And so I was like, how do I train my dog that way? Because it seems really convenient to be able to take your dog anywhere and it can still be effective at the job. So that's kind of the route that I took with my dog.
Yeah, smart, man. So your father, he trained golden retrievers, is that right?
Labs.
Oh, I'm sorry, labs. Were they duck hunting, pheasant, stuff like that?
Yep. Yeah, for duck hunting. He was a big duck hunter, and kind of the next level in duck hunting is when you start training your dog, and so he did that. And so I had very intelligent labs growing up. It was fun to be around.
That's cool, man. We kind of have a connection there. My grandfather and great grandfather. My grandfather started the Goose Hummock on Cape Cod. You could Google it. It's a sporting goods outfit. He started it with Sarge Sargent, who was the governor of Massachusetts. So they started this thing, and their big thing was duck hunting tours. So they had boxes dug into hummocks, out in the saltwater marsh. You go at the right tide, you can get down in the hummock. Now you're like eye level. So you put your decoys out and you can blast the ducks. Some of these dugouts are still there, but that was like part of and they would also market hunt. So they would sell some of the ducks to Boston. As long as you didn't ruin the breast meat with pellets, you could sell them. But they had, because of that whole history, the first dog I looked to getting and it fell through was a black lab. And I read this book called Water Dog. And it's all about these strict rules. Like it claims in this book, and the book was written in I think the 50s, but you pick your lab at 7 weeks, not one day younger, not one day older. That this author's idea is that's the ultimate bonding age, and then and it had laid out in the book all the ways to make the dog retrieve. Because I was duck hunting as a kid on Cape Cod, which is now built up. There's houses on the shore, and it's a complete pain in the ass to duck hunt. And I'm wearing waders and like going out, in the salt water trying to get my duck, and I'm like, I need a freaking dog.
Yeah.
But it fell through. But the guys that had dogs like that, those are like, they were every bit as intelligent as police dogs when they were doing their thing,
Right. Yeah. And I love that they live for a purpose, right? Is they just want to retrieve. Like, there's ways that you train them, and you have to teach them some of the nuances and hand signals and stuff like that. But how they're built to do that, it's so cool. Herders, whatever working dog you see, they're just incredible.
Dude, absolutely. We have like 9 Nigerian dwarf goats, and my wife has been letting them out. So I was home one day because I work a lot of hours, but I was home this day, and they were all out front, and she was queuing cash, like flicking, and he was just instinctively running down between them and the road and pushing them back up on our property. And I'm like, did you teach him that? And she's like, no, I've just been like snapping my fingers and motioning towards them. And he was bringing the whole herd.
Oh my gosh!
On his own, just doing it.
I love that so much. I think it's so cool.
So cool.
Every discipline of dog, working dog, whatever it is, like even agility dogs, I'm just blown away. I love what these guys can do.
Dude, it's so cool. I used to work with the guy when I was a natural resource officer. He was my supervisor. He competed on with bird dogs, and he did name one. I kept saying, can you name one ladybird? And he finally did. But he would take them out. He'd bring them in his pickup he had like a diamond plate box for 2 of them to be, and he would bring them sometimes. He was going to work them after work, and he would bring them out, and even if there was songbirds in a bush, they would sit up and he'd stroke them up, like rewarding them, like pointing on the birds. And he competed. He's a friend of mine, Bill Benetti. He's actually the director of natural resources now, but he would compete on like Tennessee walking horses or whatever, doing like field trials. Unbelievable what these dogs could do.
That's awesome.
So all that to say, Mark, really going down a rabbit hole of all the dog stuff I've ever wanted to talk about. Your dad, what do you feel like your dad imparted on you with training dogs?
He gave me the best piece of advice. He said, and it all comes down to this. He said, all that dog wants to do is make you happy. And so it's a short sentence and it's easy to nod and say that's a nice platitude. But the deeper that you get into it, like dogs have motivation. And the reason that we look for high prey drive is because it makes them easy to train. Because all they want to do is get that toy. You can train a dog to get the toy or to get a treat. But the highest level of training comes when you have that bond, which is so cool that you brought up. That's 7 weeks old, is that you build that bond so deep that all that dog wants to do is make you happy, right? So right now, my wife's downstairs. There's stuff going on with the kids and everything. Mattis is on the floor right next to me. He is by me. We are partners, and we will be until the day that he passes or I pass.
That's beautiful, man. I love that. And he's now retired.
Yeah, he's been retired since 2021.
Gotcha. And are you planning on taking on another dog or?
Yeah, well, so Mattis doesn't get along with other police dogs, so that's one inhibitor. And then I think just my age and my body breaking down and everything else makes it kind of tough. So when I had Mattis, I had a torn bicep, I got a torn ligament in my finger, 2 torn ACLs. So it's done some damage to me, but it's so worth it.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
Canine guys always have to be ready to go. All the canine guys I know back in the day when we couldn't wear the BTUs and all that, the canine guys were wearing it, and they were always covered in hair, and they'd always tell you like, don't feel bad. I'm standing in the rain so this dog can take a dump.
That's right.
And the dogs are always yapping in the back. It's like drive me nuts. But I worked with a guy that he took a there was a period when Rotties were popular.
Oh yeah.
And his Rottie failed.
Oh no.
So the department said, get rid of him or keep him at your own expense. Mm-hmm. He's a dog lover. He's like, I'm not getting rid of him. So he kept the Rottie. Then he got a Shepherd. Shepherd passed the academy, or whatever certification needed to be done passed. And now he had them both at home, and it was a complete nightmare. He said what he finally did was, because the Rottweiler would be so pissed that the Shepherd would leave for work, and he would just sit there like a boob, like, well, what's my purpose,
Yeah.
So he put muzzles on them, and he let them just go at it. Just go at it. And they just slam bodies until they were both, lying on the living room floor, and that was the end of it. But he kept both the dogs, and it was like, Rottweilers look really cool. They say they have the I saw this on Discovery Channel. You can correct me, Mark, but I think they said Rotties had the number one most powerful bite, but not far behind them was German Shepherds because of the scissor effect. Does that sound right?
Well, so there's less surface area because they have a shorter snout, and so it puts more pressure up close. It's like fine motor skills and gross motor skills. The closer you get, the stronger you are, and so same thing with the dog's bite. So they bite hard.
Yeah, and they look awesome. And they are the cutest puppies, dude. They look like real life teddy bears.
Yeah, they're adorable. Mattis is actually colored just like a Rottweiler. He's got just the tan paws, and that's it. So he's black with tan paws. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you think at the end of the podcast we can get a look at him?
Oh yeah, we'll get him up.
All right, because I got some real dog lovers on the who are fans. They're gonna want to see this boy. Awesome. Mark, can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call?
Yeah. So that would be actually when Mattis got hurt, and um, yeah, so it was very early on in his career, probably about 8 to 12 months into our partnership together, and I already knew that he was a fantastic dog, best police dog I had ever trained, I had ever worked with. He made me look so much better than I was, and I was going to eat, and I was going to have a nice lamb hero at my favorite place that I went to every shift, driving south on North Point Parkway, and I'm in actually the number one lane and approaching a light, and this car cuts over 3 lanes of traffic right in front of me. And it was just odd. It was like one of those that it was an abrupt movement, but I'm hungry too, and I really want a lamb hero. And the lamb heroes at the place that I was going to, Burger Express, are phenomenal.
I feel you,
So
brother.
priority was lamb hero, not an improper lane change. But then the guy busts through the light, and as you know, first it was the 3 lanes, and then I'm running a tag on it. It comes back to a rental, and then he busts through a light, and I'm like, there's something else that's going on here, right? It's not just the traffic violations. A lot of times, and you've probably had police officers talk about this before, if people come and do dirt in your city, they do it in a rental car, so doesn't have their name on it.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, they could be up to something. But still, I really don't have a lot except for traffic charges. And it's right around 6 o'clock. Alpharetta gets super high traffic in that area. So I turn on my lights and siren and I start pursuing, but I'm like, it's really not safe, especially with only traffic charges. So I shut it down. Dude pulls a U-turn, comes right back at me. I'm like, wow, he really doesn't know how to escape the police. So I flip in behind him as he's approaching me, and we continue. But once again, high traffic. I'm like, this isn't the best idea. He gets on the freeway and he's driving on the shoulder, cutting people off, and so I shut it down again. He gets off the next exit, and I know this because he goes into a parking lot and wrecks out where a police officer was doing reports. So literally into a parking lot where the guy, it's in end of his shift and the beginning of mine, and the guy goes over this ledge, so his car is now teetering, and 2 occupants jump out. One runs one way, one runs the other. The other police officer gives out the direction of travel for both guys that were in the car. And so I'm like, I'm kind of close to the south one, so let me head that way. And I know the area. There, we had a chase with another canine not too long ago in the same area, and it goes behind the strip mall. And the strip mall backs up to a creek, and there's a retaining wall between the strip mall and the creek. And so I go to the south end of it as he's coming from the north and running south, and kind of hope that he comes around the back. He could have cut lots of different ways, but sure enough, here he comes along the strip mall, this alleyway with the retention wall, and then the shops and stuff on the other side, but it's all brick because it's the back entrances to those shops. Um, I had cut him off. I hit my door popper, so Mattis, that flings his door open. Mattis runs by my side. And so Mattis is running by my side. The guy comes around and sees me, probably not intimidated because I'm a little fella, short, bald. And he's like, okay, I can take that guy. But he sees Mattis, and he's like, let's not go that way.
Yeah.
So he hops over the railing. And I've been in the area, and the railing at places is 10 feet high. I go to leap over the railing, and I see that he's still falling as I go to jump. So it's not 10 feet high, it was 30 feet high.
Ooh.
So I grab on to it's a little guardrail. Like if you're on the side of the freeway, it has that guardrail. So
Yep.
I grab on. It's ripping my skin. I'm holding myself up, but then I see Mattis leap over the guardrail. And body is frozen, and it was the first time I saw fear in his eyes.
Wow.
He looks back at me, and like that felt like an eternity.
I bet.
I had all these questions about like why was I running with him off leash, and that's one of the things. Like I told you, I had trained him to a level where he was completely safe off leash and would stay right by my side. He wasn't on a bite command or chase that guy. He was on run by me, and I started to leap, but I saved myself, but I put my partner in jeopardy.
Oh.
And so I remember, time slows down in the pit in my stomach because I was worried that I just killed my dog.
Yeah.
He falls, he lands on the guy, and he looks up at me. And I'm like, okay. And he seemed to be okay. And I tell Mattis to guard the guy, to lay down and guard the guy. And I actually tell him from 30 feet above, I tell my dog to move closer to him. And he does. He moves closer. I tell the guy, you move, you're going to get bit. He doesn't move. I got backup that shows up. I find a way down there. And I checked structurally to see if Mattis is okay. And he seemed okay. They call on the radio, hey, we got the other guy in this area. Is your dog available? Load him up in the car. Beeline over there, jump out of the car. Mattis is dragging. We were passing other police officers on the run. We catch up to the guy that's taken off from us, and he sees Mattis and gives up. As soon as the guy gives up, Mattis collapses.
Oh, no.
And yeah, he whimpers, and I pick him up, and I carry him about 100 yards back to my vehicle, and just hear him crying in the back. And so I'd say that was, like, especially that car ride to the vet. And this is actually how, not to segue, but how my book opens up is this scene right here. And good news, he's fine. There's a picture of him here. He retired in 2021, so you know that there's good news that comes after this. But I just remember that time. That was the hardest. I mean, there's been times where, shoot or don't shoot, and I've been close to those. Am I about to get shot? I've been close to those, being on SWAT and all these other things. But as far as just gut-wrenching sadness, doubt, frustration in myself, that call right there was hard, because, like, he acted with courage and valor, and I felt like I had put him in a horrible situation.
Yeah, man, that's tough, because you form that bond with the dog, but the dog is very much there to be, in some cases, you see it on TV and stuff and on police calls where they're a substitute for possibly losing an officer. Yeah. I'd actually never even thought about that exchange for the handler. That's really hard. That's really rough. I mean, especially he said he jumped over the wall and looked at you and was kind of like, Dad, what's going on? I can't turn around and grab the railing.
Yeah.
Damn. So, I mean, no way you could have known that. But so that was, he felt like he jumped like 30 feet down.
30 feet. He had a lacerated liver. And I remember we got to the vet, and he's also one, like, he is great. I told you, he's super social when I'm with him. Like, if you take me out of the equation, he's a different dog. He's like, okay, I'm in charge. I protect. And so I had to go in the back with the vet with him, and we got him up for x-rays, MRI, and he starts looking around. He said, we need to get him into surgery right away. And that's not the words that you want to hear.
No.
Oh, so that was hard. They sedated him, and I lifted him up on the table, and then I had to just go and sit and wait for hours in the waiting room, wondering, was he going to live? Would he ever be able to be a police dog again, right? Is because these things can affect the dog and cause, like, a socialization that he's scared of heights, or he's scared to do his job. And so I really thought, if nothing else, he would never work again. And I was like, I just ruined this amazing animal.
Damn, man. So he was okay, and they patched up his liver or did what they had to do.
Yeah. They actually, it was one of the coolest things. There was internal bleeding. He saw it on the MRI. He said, we got to get him into surgery right away. But by the time they had opened him up, it already healed itself, which is just incredible.
This friggin' dog.
Yep. He was back to work full service in a month. He had stitches probably a foot long on his belly. So.
Damn, man. Do you think, it sounds like the Lord put the dog with you.
Oh, yeah. That's what my whole book is about, is, like, just, and I talked to you earlier, like, the darkness that we see, the things that you can carry. I feel so, and especially after he retired and having to do the job without a dog, it was the best to have this guy on my shoulder. When you are carrying some heavy things or some dark things with you, it's just to be able to scratch his head or jump out and play ball with him in the middle of shift, and that's training.
Yeah. Dogs are very zen, man. They're like,
No,
no matter the scenario, you just
yeah.
kind of look at that sweet face and you're like, I feel better.
Yep. Best
Damn,
job in
man.
the world, hands down.
That's so cool, man. What a partnership you guys had. It's unbelievable. How long after that incident did he work for?
He worked for 5.5 years after that. So, and he's most decorated dog in our history, more arrests, fines. Like, he went on to have an amazing career. So he's a great dog.
He's a good boy.
Very.
The bestest boy, as they say.
Yes.
Hey, man. Well, I'm sure you have an answer for this one. Can you think of a positive situation you encountered in your career so far?
Oh, tons. I think one of the biggest is we made it a point. Like, I saw the bridge that dogs create with the community. Just like you said, you see their sweet face, and all of a sudden they want to talk to you. As a police officer, people don't want to talk to you. You're in the uniform. You're yeah,
Sure.
off limit. But if you have a dog on a string and you're in the same uniform, people flock. We be on extra jobs I did extra jobs at the movie theater, and for socialization, I always got my dog out so he's around crowds and stuff. And there'd be two officers, me and the other guy that I was working with, and people would just flock and gather around Mattis and ask questions. They'd miss their movie to talk about the dog, and the other guy's just standing there. But it was funny. I always worked with the same guy, so he learned all the answers. So I just started letting him handle it, so he would get some of the attention sometimes too. But it's one of the coolest things, and we got involved with the social media and all these other things. But I think the greatest is we got involved with Coins for Cure, raising money for kids with cancer, and just through our involvement of building bridges and specific kids and stuff, we were able to raise, I think, $500,000 to
Wow.
fight childhood cancer. And so those things, and I just got done with a fundraiser this past weekend with Georgia Police Canine Foundation, and they raised over $300,000 in one weekend to help fund training, equipment, everything else for dogs in the state of Georgia. So it's those things that I think I always wanted to leave some sort of impact that would last longer than what we've just the work or the arrests or whatever we did there. If we could better the community, and I think we did with those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's such a valuable resource in so many different ways. Not just catching bad guys, but making the public. I mean, as a kid, I can remember when if the local police department came and they had a canine and did a demonstration. That was like, it's like watching magic, because every kid has a freaking dog at home that's like an idiot. So you see this dog and you're like, what's wrong with my dog? My dog doesn't know nothing.
That's it. I remember I was on SWAT, and we had this big demonstration, this command vehicle behind us. We had sniper rifles, body armor, robots, all these cool things. And I'm telling all of our best SWAT stories. And we had a decent crowd, but the canine guy, who's not the best canine guy, honestly, and not very personable, he shows up and in a dirty car and jumps out, and just everyone in the whole touch a truck just goes over to the canine dude, and I was like, wow, that is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is truly incredible. Like, I've heard guys talk about it before, where they start talking about how their noses work even, and how they describe it like we're just shedding skin cells, just piling. Like, underneath me now from sitting here, I am piling skin cells, that I can't see. And these dogs can smell that. Like,
Beacon. That's how they see the world, is these odors. The thing that blows me away though is how they differentiate. Right, is the fact that your skin smells so much different than my skin, right? Or they can take in their mind, when we're doing tracking, it's basically, okay, I smell all these humans that are around, but that's not the human that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the human that is not here. And all I have is this different smell, and his smell is a slightly different than all of y'all's. And so that's the one that I'm going to look for.
It's incredible. It totally changed my mind when I go to like a dog park and I see a dog just take a long whiff of a huge steaming poop. Because usually you're like, oh my gosh, I would bark. But he's not smelling what you smell. He's probably smelling the enzymes and the legitimate food this other dog ate. He's smelling the whole picture. He's not smelling the poop smell,
You just made me think that, like, that's their Instagram, right? All like, how we have those
Yeah.
people that post everything they do. That's the poop for the dogs. It's like, I know everything about you because of what you just
Yeah. I have your whole life story chronologically laid out in front of me.
awesome. I love it.
That's so funny, brother. Yeah. So popular question on the show. A lot of people who listen, and I always say this, so I'm going to keep saying it. I get like pictures from people who just graduated police academy. They listen to the show. They listen to you guys and gals talk about the job, and it seriously makes people who are on the fence or unsure. Sometimes it makes them become a cop, which I think is probably the best outcome from the show. That to me, that's incredible. What advice would you give to new people coming on the job?
Remember your why. Most people get into it for extremely noble reasons. And it's easy as you go along and you see the worst in people. You see the worst situations that people go through. It's easy to deal with those things by becoming cynical. And then you'll also face other police officers who don't have maybe the work ethic or the purpose or whatever it is. And as in any profession, when people rise above or they're doing things with intent, there are going to be people that try to bring you down to their level. So always remember your why and don't compromise who you are. That's my anyone who comes to the door. That's what I tell them is, and I'll ask them, why do you want to do this? Okay, never forget it. Never forget that reason.
Absolutely. Words of wisdom right there. 100%. Mark, tell us a little bit about the book. It sounds like there might be a spiritual aspect to this along with stories from you and Mattis.
Yeah, it's just basically it's 12 lessons for living courageously, serving selflessly, and building bridges from a heroic canine officer. It's some cool cop stories, but what I realized was my dog. I would look at the way that he approaches work. Right, I get ready in the morning, and there's days where you're like, I don't know if I want to do this, but my dog would beeline to his harness and run circles because he got to do his job, and he got to be with me.
Great
And so
motivation.
yeah, and it was like that is so convicting. Like he has this amazing work ethic that he sucks the zeal out of life, and I'm like, what can I learn from this dog? And then so there's all kinds of lessons of humility, work ethic, courage. When you just look at that one scenario that I started with when he got hurt, is I asked him to do something and he trusted me and he did it without hesitation and he put his life in jeopardy because he did trust me. That's incredible. And that's sometimes, if you get the spiritual aspect, that's what God asks us to do sometimes is we don't know the end or how things might not, or how they might come out, but still it's on us to trust. And especially as police officers, I have this big pet peeve and I don't know if you do it or not, but I don't like when people say to me, be safe, because I don't think that's our job. I want to keep people safe. But the reason that I have a job in law enforcement is because every once in a while, to protect others, I have to be dangerous.
Yeah, it's
I
true.
Yeah, I have to be willing to have the courage to be dangerous and risk my life to protect other people. And so that's where the faith aspect and what I saw in my dog. And so it's all these different stories. Each one, usually there's a training aspect, a deployment that's involved. And I learned from the dog. I think humility and perseverance are two of the biggest things that you learn from a dog because you'll get frustrated because you don't know what he's trying to tell you because he has this amazing nose that we've talked about, and he interprets the world. He's the expert. He's the expert witness, and I'm the guy holding the leash that has to be able to tell you what he's telling me. And I'll get frustrated because he's not doing what I want him to, and it's not his fault. I can't take it out on him.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough. And so that's one of the biggest things. And it helps you dealing with with other people, with your family, with my wife, for sure. Learning how to say, oh, it's on me. I got to figure this one out. So that's what it is a collection of hopefully fun stories that'll keep you engaged and how it changed me as a man.
It sounds amazing, brother. MyDogMattis.com. Get the book there. You can also find it at other places, Amazon and
wherever you get your books.
Wherever you get your books.
Too. I got the Audible.
Oh, you do?
It's in my voice too, which is fun because I get a little emotional at parts, if you can imagine that.
Dude, that's great. Yeah, you have a great speaking voice. That's awesome, man. I actually love it when authors read the books themselves.
Well, yeah. They told me I was doing it, and I said, okay.
I love it, brother. Hey, man, it was an absolute honor to have you on. So much fun to hear these stories and get down and hear some details about being a canine handler and having a canine that's like super exceptional. Your stories were great, man. Thank you so much.
Steve, it was really awesome. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, brother. I'm going to do the outro. Can you hang on for just like 3 or 4 minutes?
Absolutely.
All right. I'll be right with you. The great Mark Tappan, everybody. Phenomenal stories. What an amazing partnership he has with this canine. So cool. Unbelievable. I wish I could have a canine, actually. I'd like to have a little pal with me in the car. Let me bring up the Patreon Sergeant. So if you join the Patreon and you choose Sergeant or Lieutenant or Captain, if you dare, at $100, you will also get a Patreon shout out every single episode. And who I'm talking about is Adam McMahon, everybody. Adam Mihal, Andy Biggs, the great and powerful Andy Biggs, Ape Good, ladies and gentlemen, the great Ben Peters, Bentley Barnett, Brad Thompson, Dan Carlson from Burley Boards. Check him out on Instagram. The great Chris June, Clark Lakoff. Thank you very much, sir. The great Dave Ellman, Dennis Carrasquillo, everybody. Detective Nick Adams, ladies and gentlemen. Doug and Kelly Newman. Love you guys here at church. The great Elliot Sykes. The great Gary Steiner. George Cariotis, everybody. Greg Gadboy. The great J.A. family. Love you guys. Thank you. Jake Pinedo. James Rose. The great Jason Labrie, everybody. Jason Lau. John Jordan. John Shoemaker. Justin King, everybody. Kyle Roberts. Kyle Napier. The great Lauren Stimson. The handsome Lane Campbell. Michael Roach of Roach Machine AI Solutions. Check him out. Iceman from Motocrop Chronicles. The great Nancy Hammond. Paul Maloney, everybody. Richard Tolles. Keep on trucking, brother. The great Sasha McNabb. Scott Minkler. Scott Young. Sean Clifford. Seth Wright. Sheriff Ronald Long. The great Tammy Walsh. Tony Fahey. William James Long. That's Deputy William James Long to you. Thank you very much. Zach Haney. Zachary Fleet. And the great George Tessier. I will see you at church, brother. Woo, guys, the list is getting long, and I love it. Thank you so much. The Patreon is the place to go. If you really love the show, you've listened to a ton of episodes, and you really want to back the mission of the show of getting these stories out there, that's the place to do it. The link is in the show notes. I thank you so much. I love you guys, and I will see you next time.